Hi everyone. Thanks for joining me on my ride today. Today I am on the Steamboat Trace Trail, which is in the southeastern corner of Nebraska, right on the border with Iowa. In fact, the Missouri River is right over there about a quarter mile away, and that's what separates the two states. It is a great day to be out exploring, great day to kind of take in nature and to get some good miles in on the bike. Well, I really like riding on these rail trails because it gives you lots of time to think. And one of the things I was thinking about today is the whole process of creativity. Do you think creativity is something that everybody is born with, but then over time, through schooling and our interactions with other people, we learn not to be creative? Do you think that's possible? So if we're all born creative, what would you have created if fear or worry hadn't gotten in your way? Or a concern over, will somebody else like this? How would that have changed what you would be creating in this world? So if you think that everybody is born creative, then something happens in between childhood and adulthood that prevents us or stops us from being creative. So my next question would be this: what would you create or have created if fear and worry hadn't gotten in the way? Or approval from somebody else to tell you that what you're creating is good enough? What would that have been? Or maybe I can change that question a little bit. If we didn't have any fear or worry about what we're doing or what we're making, what would that mean to us, and what would we start creating today and put out to the world to see? Maybe another creativity question would be this: if we weren't afraid of being wrong or judged as being wrong, what would we create? What would we start making today? Now, has someone ever told you that you're creative? Or have you had someone say to you, "Oh, you must be one of those creative types," which makes it sound like there's really something unusual or something weird about you? So, truth is, I think everyone is born bursting with creativity. We're curious, we're bold, and we love to imagine things. We like to think about how could things be or be different from what they are now. We are born creative people. So one of the things I love about this trail is not too long ago I was riding fairly close to the river along a tree-lined area, a lot of shade, buffer from the wind, and then you break out into an area like this. And we have a 5-mile section now that is absolutely flat, and there goes the trail. Good thing today I have a nice tailwind to push me along the rest of the way. It's the diversity of the trail, the changes in the trail that make it interesting. And I think that's one of the things that really sparks our curiosity, is when we encounter new, novel, and different things. All right, so I just finished that 5-mile section where it's nice and flat. Now, to show you what a big difference it makes, on the way down, I was struggling all the way through that 5-mile section because I was directly into the wind the whole time. On the way back, it was effortless to ride in because I had that wind at my back. Plus, I was riding on average 5 miles per hour faster on the way back than on the way down. That's what makes riding outdoors so much fun and exciting. And now we're back into a different terrain. We're crossing over one of the old railroad bridges that have been converted to the rail trail. For the rest of the way back to the trailhead, it's all tree-lined, a lot of cover, beautiful area to ride in. Okay, so if new and different experiences pique our curiosity, what kills our curiosity and kills our creativity? I think it's really 3 things. First, getting into routines, which are driven by habits. And then third, we get lulled into a sense of comfort because we know what's going to happen next. And then we start thinking, I just don't like change. I just want everything to be the same. That's what kills creativity. So if you agree with the idea that we were all born bursting with creativity, but then all of a sudden when we get into adulthood, something happens. Where did that creativity go? Something intervened in between being maybe 4 or 5 years old and then being 30 years old. And I think what happens is this. We start off raising our hands because we have an answer or we think we have an answer. And then all of a sudden we stop raising our hands because we've learned that when we raise a hand and we say, here's the answer, we're told sometimes that's not right, or that's not correct, or that's silly. And when that happens, we learn not to raise our hands. We learn not to question. And then we also learn this. Grades in school are more important than ideas. And when that takes hold, we start considering ourselves as non-creative because other people are creative, it's just not us. And we really start seeking out having the right answers and the best grades. That's another thing that kills our creativity. Okay, so here's the thing. You can't ever lose your creativity. It's still there. We're just as creative now as we were when we were 4, 5, or 6 years old. The problem is we've learned how to conform. We've learned how to come up with the right answers, to get the right grades, and our creativity took a back seat. That means we can still revive it. We can bring it back, and it is there, and it is waiting to be called upon. So let's look at ways that we can reignite that flame, build back in our curiosity, and be a little bit more creative in our lives. Well, my bike ride is over with, and I had an absolutely great time on the Steamboat Trace Trail today. And according to the bike computer, I got in 43.8 miles, had a great time, and more importantly, had a chance to really think about my favorite topic in the whole world, which is creativity. How can we live a more creative life? What are those things that we can do? And as I mentioned before, I don't think creativity goes away. It's just like a muscle. You either use it or you lose it. And if you haven't been using your creativity muscle a lot lately, we need to uncover that and get it back out. Or in other words, we need a plan. So I'm going to switch over, go back to the whiteboard, continue talking about not only creativity, but a plan as to how we can start reintroducing it into our lives, kind of little by little, to get us out of those habits and routines that we have. Also, I want to talk to you about a man that I heard from a long time ago. His name is Mike Vance, and what I learned from him as far as creativity and how to think outside that proverbial box that we always hear about. All right, next I'd like to introduce you to a man by the name of Mike Vance. Mike Vance, in 1995, published a book, and that book's focus was on creativity. The title of the book was Think Outside the Box. Now, that was the first time I'd ever heard that term, and it really piqued my curiosity to wonder, what does he mean by thinking outside the box? One of my favorite quotes from his book was this: "Innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity, not as a threat." And I think this is one of the keys to being more creative, is that when we encounter change, we can look at it as either an opportunity or a threat. If we look at it as a threat, we close off any idea about how we can deal with that change, and we want to move away from it, as compared to looking at it as an opportunity and embracing that change. Now, another idea that Mike Vance introduced was this whole idea that creativity is like a muscle. Now, we've heard this before. You either use it or you lose it. And with creativity, it's the same thing. If I'm using my creativity muscle, I'm building it over time, and that leads me to more creative thinking. And contrary to that, if I'm not using my creativity muscle, it weakens over time. Now, it doesn't totally go away, but it just weakens. So we can build our creativity muscle back regardless of our age. Now, I really like this idea about a box. And I was thinking, if you're thinking outside the box, that would mean there's some degree of discomfort in doing that because we're looking at change and we're looking at opportunities. If I see change as a threat, that means I'm inside the box. And if I'm inside the box, everything is comfortable inside that area. But my other question was this when I thought about that box is the idea of, if you're inside the box, how do you start thinking outside the box? Don't you have to get outside the box to begin with to be able to get beyond those barriers? That was another idea that Mike Vance in his book really spurred me to think about. Okay, another thing about creativity. Mike Vance says creativity dies in fear. If we're in an environment where there's fear present, there is no creativity because we then move into a mode of protection. So to get out of that, we have to really get rid of fear or anything that's in that environment that might be impeding this. Okay, here's the big one that Mike Vance really brought to me out of his book, and that is this. In every home out there, we have a space. Now that space is an area where we go to make banana bread. That banana bread is something that we eat, ingest, put in our stomach, and it provides us with a certain level of nutrition. And we call this space in our homes the kitchen. So every home out there has some space that's dedicated to where we go and prepare food that is nutritious to feed our stomach and keep us alive. He also said in every home we should have another space where we go to think, where we go to grow ideas, and he called it an idea factory. That we need a dedicated room or a dedicated space where we can establish our idea factory, and then we make banana bread, but not for the stomach. You make banana bread for the head. So just like we make banana bread to nourish us, we can make banana bread that nourishes our thinking, nourishes our creativity. He said it should be a sanctuary, someplace that's for you, that you want, and this is where we go to grow ideas. Because we have an idea, but we have to give that idea time to nourish over time. It needs to grow and expand. So if we have an area in our house, a space where we can go, kind of like his idea about being an idea factory, where I make banana bread for the head. And this is where we grow ideas and allow them over time to take shape. So the more we think about that idea and the more we work with it, it grows and takes shape over time. This area also is where we create high energy ideas. And high energy ideas take time to develop as we're moving along. This was Mike Vance's book to me, and it really stuck with me that, yeah, we do need a space where we can go and create ideas, grow ideas, and let them nourish and take shape over time. So right now, we are in my space, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a minute. But this is where I go to grow an idea, and I use a whiteboard to illustrate those ideas, make them visual where I can get them up and see them in front of me. One other idea that Mike Vance shared out of his book is this. Procrastination is the fear of discomfort. When we put things off, what we're really putting off is the idea that something uncomfortable is going to happen. That means if we're procrastinating, we're really looking to create comfort, to stay inside of this box. And moving outside that box is uncomfortable. But the more you move outside the box, the bigger those ideas come, and the more banana bread that we start baking for our head. Okay, you ready for the tour? I want to show you the place in my home where I make banana bread for the head. And that is in this room right over here. And I call it my idea room. Now, when you first look at my idea room, you might be thinking, well, this looks like an exercise room. But exercise and creativity have a connection as far as how we develop ideas. Now, I love using whiteboards because whiteboards give you a very easy way to visually get your ideas up in front of you. And I start off with a small whiteboard here where I start the idea and let it develop over time. Then it moves to this whiteboard, and then when it's kind of fully formed, I move it to this whiteboard where I create a mind map. Now, in the other room right back here, I have my sauna. And the reason why I use that small whiteboard to start my ideas over here is that when I'm on the treadmill, I can stand on the treadmill and I'm looking right at that idea, and it lets me think about that idea and develop it over time. So I'll stop as I'm working out and kind of run over to the whiteboard and jot down another idea that has just come to me about developing that whole process. So this is my area where I make banana bread for the head. Now, I think as we're aging, I think we have a choice of doing one of two different things. One, we can develop a mindset that says, I'm going to improve and I'm moving forward, that there's a better version of me someplace down the road. Or I can decide not to do that and decline and kind of slowly go backwards. So that's a choice we get to make. As I've mentioned before, I don't think there's any such thing as status quo. We're either improving or we're not. So when it comes to creativity, let's think about it this way. Create anyway. It doesn't have to be the biggest and best thing in the whole world. It just has to be something. And when we think about creating, what we're really doing is we're envisioning a future that doesn't yet exist. It's not here yet. So it's something beyond where we presently are. That's what creativity allows us to do. We can use our imagination to think of how we want it to become. To create is to construct a future you. One small piece at a time, one small step at a time, one positive lifestyle change every day moves us in that direction in a very creative way. And lastly, if your future ever feels like a blank page and you don't know where this is going to, I have a suggestion. Pick up a pen, start writing, and create something. Because this is that one small step that's going to start moving us in that direction. So if Mike Vance was here, I think what he would say is this: create something. It doesn't matter what it is, just make some banana bread for your head.